Was there any stereotype or preconceived notion about the French that you felt like was debunked, right, through your interactions with them? Is it something that you feel like you have to adapt and pretty much based on your words flex?
Something that is debunked, I think at one point in time, I don't know if you guys followed any of Sharon Orr's Instagram, so she's a celebrity in Singapore that moved over, right? So there were a lot of things about French stereotypes, one of which was like, working in France is very chill. It's definitely true in some sense in that when I was there, I had 35 days of annual leave, which is absolutely amazing and unimaginable in Singapore. But I've also seen my team work really hard, including over the weekends or into the night to get things done. I think the difference would be that when they're on leave, they do a proper handover and they are truly on leave, they never check. There isn't that Singaporean polite thing that says, oh, I'm away on this day, but I expect slower responses, but I also be looking at my emails. No, it's just like, I'm away, I will get back to you and come back. So yeah, like different things, but there's a reason why it's also true. So I think I saw two different types of French in a sense. The French I'm describing are to a certain extent the high achievers because in like Danone is a very prestigious company to enter. So these tend to be the really go-getters, the people who are willing to work really hard. In the same company, there were some really amazing admin assistants. So in the work hours, they were completely capable and helpful. But the moment the clock strikes, they're gone. They don't expect to work late, and I think that's just that social contract to a certain extent because they're also not paid the amounts that like some of my other teammates might have been paid. This is just my guess.
Thank you.
You had a second? Oh, yeah.
I guess she answered.
Yeah.
Do you have a situation that you need to push it across to make sure that people use your ideas?
Sorry, what? I couldn't catch the last word.
Use your ideas. Like, do you have any situation that you need to convince people or persuade people to use your ideas? What kind of strategies or what kind of words do you usually use in terms when you talk to your French colleagues?
Definitely. I think while there, I still wanted to implement certain projects or prove why I was selected to move to HQ, right? I think the difficult situation was also the very directness of the French that I was working with. Or, so like, if they think it's stupid, there's no like, maybe you could do this other thing. It's just like, it doesn't look like you could do or something. Like, they give you very direct feedback and it can sound hurtful when you're first there, but they separate like work and life to a certain extent, or they can be totally like nice people and to listen. It's just they're used to giving direct feedback because it gets things done faster. So I think how I adapted to that was understanding that I was part of the culture and understanding that it wasn't just me because everyone was getting that kind of feedback they're presenting some of their work. And just like maybe trying to find people that I clicked with on a more social level and like working harder to before the big presentation, getting some of their ideas of how like this might be received by my boss or like fellow colleagues that they know better. So and I think to summarize it would be like understand that you're in a different culture, give yourself time, be open and not like just absolutely like, oh my goodness, why are these being so rude? But just observing, right, this is not happening just to you. And the other part of it would be if you're impatient to try to become more part of the group more quickly, then put in the work to a certain extent. Yeah.
Angelique, if I could ask a question, just going back to what you said earlier about building the trust, and part of it is also preparing for the situations in which you're going to be. So one of the things that you did obviously was learning the language, talking to the team, etc. How much of the culture were you able to learn from the language, and how much did that differ when you went over? Because I think a part that people don't talk about a lot is that you learn quite a bit of culture from learning the language. So yeah, keen to hear experience on that. And I don't know, has that helped you more, or were there lots of stereotypes learning it differently in a different environment and then going there?
I think definitely learning the language will help with one component of it. There's some scientific research that says that when you speak a different language, your mindset might also shift. For example, again, I said like languages, I'm learning Japanese. Japanese has so many levels of politeness, so it's a very hierarchical kind of society. There's a joke that if you're fluent in curses, in a way you're fluent in French. Like, a lot of them can be very direct in that sense as well, being very fluent in curses or whatever. So I think aside from that, like absorbing some of their content, so it helps to talk to people who have been there. So I had some colleagues who did a stint in France as well, and then someone recommended me this series called, I think, What the Fuck France by Paul Taylor. So he is a UK comedian who like grew up, part of his life was in France. So he then played us a lot of stereotypes to show like, okay, what's true, what's not. So another famous one might be like Emily in Paris. Some of it is exaggerated. Like I like to joke with my girlfriends. If my shower breaks down in France, I don't think I'll conveniently find a very handsome neighbor that will help me out. It could happen, but it's more likely happening in the show. But some of the other things that you mentioned, right? Like we laugh because I watched it while I was there, and we laughed because you can see part of that happening in French culture as well. So I think to understand the other part of your question, like being open and absorbing stereotypes, but also knowing that it's not absolute, right? Like let's say you're a person, but you've grown up for like 10 years of your life were in the UK, you'd probably be different from like a fully French person in a sense. So there's no like, and a French person, like I mentioned just now, like an admin assistant, great at the job, but they leave on the dot. Versus some of my colleagues who are really fighting for promotion, they are actually working very hard. The only difference versus us in Singapore might be that when they're on holiday, it's like truly on holiday. They're not in contact because that's fully acceptable and part of French culture. So like, I think stereotypes can help, but if you go in thinking this stereotype is the absolute, you might also offend someone because
It's not bad. No thanks.
And so do you ever get into a sticky situation or trouble because of the different culture?
yes, and this was very interesting for me. Maybe I'll give one example for a French example and one for a Japanese example when I was working with a Japanese based in Singapore. So the French example was that I'm somewhat active on LinkedIn, so every once in a while I'll post like any updates on my work. So we had an offsite, and I was very excited that I posted an offsite picture with a picture of my team. Like, oh, we had an offsite, it was great. And later I got an urgent call from my boss, and my boss said, "Can you please take down the post?" And apparently my boss got the feedback because I think some people are a lot more private, so I posted it without checking with my teammates whether it was okay to put their faces up on LinkedIn. And it wasn't like a high quality picture, so if you zoom in, it's not like the face is like super sharp. But it was one thing that I didn't realize was such a big thing. So after that, if I posted, I would post like a picture of my name tag or whatever, like without people that were me. So that was just like one small thing, and it caused a little bit of panic because it happened soon after I went. I was like, did I make a mistake so soon? So that's a very French example. A similar, interesting Japanese example. I was still working in Singapore, but I had a Japanese stakeholder who I had to work with very closely. So this was peak period, and I was very busy, and she was just joining the team, so she was being very friendly. If anything, just come to me, I'm happy to help. I did. I kind of like delegated part of my work, but I thought she was like pretty independent and senior enough. I didn't give like a lot of support or like feedback and stuff like that. And a while later, I got feedback from my boss. So we were chatting while we were working, and then it was like, it sounded totally fine. But a while later, I got feedback from my boss, through her boss, saying that I was being very pushy with her. And again, it was very culture shock because through all our chats and convos, it felt like we had a good relationship. Like it was just like we were working through a tough time together. But maybe in a culture where it's less confrontational, like in the French culture, for example, my colleague might just tell me like, Angela, you're being pushy, like stop. But in like that culture, it came back in a roundabout way.